Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is Katy Merriman at the Playhouse. We're here for another Fridays on 42nd Street, and I'm so excited to have a very special friend and guest, Napoleon Douglas, here to talk with us from New York City. He has been involved in the marches on Broadway lately, and I just thought we're out here in the Midwest and not, maybe reading about that, but not as invested as some of us might be if we were living there and going to those marches every day. And so Napoleon's going to talk a little bit about what's going on with Broadway, maybe with equity, and mainly just about the marches for equity in theater that have been going on. That wasn't as elegant as I had planned and practiced, but let's let Napoleon talk. Napoleon, who are you? What are you doing out there in New York professionally, and what are you doing for racial justice?
Absolutely. What's up? Hello, Des Moines. It's lovely to be able to connect with you. I miss my home. Napoleon Douglas here, Roosevelt grad, just literally raised in Des Moines. I'm out here in New York City area in Bayonne, New Jersey. I am acting, I have an agent that represents me in both like stage, film, and TV. Just did a Hulu gig a few days ago, which was really, really fun. So on the self tape the train right now, the professional audition as we call it, and also doing amongst a lot of other things, doing a lot of activism since March 2020. I've been out here, and now with the pandemic, the industry, especially Broadway, has been completely dark.
Right.
And in those first couple of months, I think it was expected, but as time went on, people were kind of wondering why, especially when SAG after with film and TV continued to go on and things. So this gave us all a moment to reset, right, and really look at what our industry looks like, not only from a structural standpoint, but like from a social standpoint, or how are we really respecting our actors and stage managers that are represented in this union. Are we representing BIPOC artists and trans artists and all, it's a myriad of different marginalized groups in the ways that they should be. And so with the March on Broadway came in, there was six demands, and I think there's a collection of a lot of things that really came to pass that started that off. A big one being my partner has started a show, and I kind of helped him produce it, called The Receipts with Davon Williams. And
which we will link to for you after this video so that you can go watch them too.
Down in the comments below or whatever.
Like for more.
Yeah. It's like the YouTube button. It's
okay, right, but here. I don't know how to do that, so we'll just post them.
Right. But within that show, there was the show started with and took a two season run, really speaking to a myriad of different inequities that we're seeing in equity. They kind of started with electioneering in the most recent AEA election, right? There was some racist tweets going out, and there was somebody being heavily supported. Started the show Receipts, and go all the way to now where there's embezzlement charges, coming with a lot of big producers on Broadway. So with that, we're starting to see and understand all of the embezzlement, the blatant racism, different things that's going on. Things like the March on Broadway come, and I can share with you the demands that kind of that we were asking in that march. That kind of gives an overall idea of what's going on out here. The first one was put Scott Rudin on the AEA Do Not Work list. Scott Rudin is a very, very big, both the Broadway and movie producer. I'm sure I know that you've seen him. Watching, you've seen some of his work. But I'll go through these facts. I know we don't have much time. The second demand is we wanted a full list of organizations that the Actors Equity Association is working with to help Black, Indigenous, and people of color feel safer. What are the things that you are doing now in this moment to make sure that we have safe spaces? Demand 3 was a full report on how the 2019-2020 equity dues were spent and what percentage was spent to help conversations around diversity. Hashtag no news, no dues. We're putting all these dues out there, and we weren't seeing a lot of things coming back. So we just wanted the full transparency on where the money was going. Demand 4 was achieve greater inclusion for trans and non-binary artists, which is very, very self-explanatory, but just the amount of neglect to that community, I think, is really incredible. And finally, the fifth one was we want visibility on how the National Council of Actors Equity Association votes for policies and want those efforts to improve diversity within the council. the big word of it was representation,
Yeah.
solidarity. We're all here just to make sure that everybody has an equal, equitable space to
Yeah.
do what we love to do.
And it sounds like, please show us how you are taking actionable steps to do that. I just want to clarify a couple of things for people too, because you've been saying AEA, or Actors Equity Association, which is like the union for performers who you see in Broadway productions and tours, and it represents them like as a union representative. And a major part of what the marches have been about is looking for more inclusion and diversity for BIPOC artists. And that's sort of where the tie-in with what Napoleon's talking about, AEA and Broadway, comes. They work hand in hand.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Actors Equity is specifically for stage actors and stage managers, whereas there is SAG-AFTRA, which takes care of anything that you see recorded, right? And you see movies, Marvel, everybody has still adjusted, but Broadway is still dark. That was the big
right.
What is going on.
And also wasn't letting members perform, right? I mean...
Well, SAG tried to, and I mean...
I know SAG was, but Equity was like, no, you can't do it, right?
And that was the biggest thing. Everybody was like, well, what is your plan? There was plenty of people, and you see in the receipts, there's people that came from barter theater, regional theaters all over the nation who had COVID-compliant plans to get actors back on stage and get people working. And things. I mean, me, like a lot of us, like, this is my livelihood.
Yeah.
You know, just like it is, you know, people who are working down at Principal Financial, like, I work as an actor to pay my bills.
Yeah.
And you've said no since March 2020, so we needed some answers.
Yeah, and I mean, we even have someone in Some Enchanted Evening. This is our last weekend of running that show here at the Playhouse. We have a performer there who was living in New York and working as a touring actor and had the same situation and came home. So, I mean, lucky for us, because we got someone of great caliber in a show. But it's amazing, like, well, it's just, if you don't live in that world, you don't think about how, anyone working as an actor, a singer, a musician, a dancer... anything in entertainment lost their primary source of income and then probably lost their secondary source of income as well, because it's usually in like the restaurant industry or taking care of children. Like nannying is a huge way that people make money in New York, and everyone's parents came home. So you just, everything that you had, you completely lost, and it's like maybe a weird blessing that it gave people time to be like, okay, so what's going on here and how can we make this better? But now that we're coming out of it, you know, I just look forward to seeing what kind of changes we can make. And, you know, I think, like, in some ways, at a regional theater or at the Playhouse, like, we get together and we can make changes, and we don't have, like, billion-dollar industries depending on us. So it's great to look to Broadway to set an example, but it also is, like, I think it's a better example to just see, like, you and the people who have been marching and making those demands, like, that's the example that I think and hope other theaters will follow. And obviously Broadway as well.
You know, it really happened. We've seen change. Our first demand getting off of the list, like, that happened. You know, we went out there, we marched, and we made enough noise to make things happen. So, yeah, please be encouraged to, you know, Des Moines feels small, but it has a big impact, you know, and we can hear your guys' voices there.
The Black Lives Matter bill passed, right?
Yeah, the Black Theater Matters bill passed. That went through, and so
Black
now
Theater Matters. Sorry.
Yeah, and we give clarification to that. That is just through the National Convention, right?
Right.
So we passed the bill that starts a conversation.
Okay.
Basically, okay, now we will present this and have this conversation, and really think about that. We have to pass a bill that is bigger than Black artists. We're talking about representing drag performers, and we're talking about teaching artists. A big part of our livelihood as actors, and Spanish-speaking theaters, demanding more community engagement. All these different things that we demanded in this bill now got passed just so that we can have a conversation. Yeah. So technically, there's guarantees that some work has to be done, but we don't know when, we don't know how. Yeah. So
it wasn't like a rule or a policy change.
It was a resolution submitted to, you know, the national. It's just like it's a bill and it got passed, and now it's sort of like with anything. I hate to use an example, but it's like, you know, on a national scale with politics, you know, a bill passes but something doesn't change for, like, you know, 18 months.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, the Black Theater Matters bill passed at the Actors Equity Association's inaugural national convention in April of 2021. So we're not talking about like political legislation. We're talking about within equity. But still, a really important thing to at least start change. Napoleon, I'm sure I'm way out of time, but it was definitely worth going long to get to talk to you. And I hope we can talk again soon. Let us know when you're here and in person too. Oh, that's Napoleon.
Love that. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yes.
We're good.